of the verdicts left us all here at Al Jazeera quite stunned. We dared to believe that the verdict would be not guilty because we'd sat and watched the court sessions over the past few months and we'd seen absolutely no evidence that the prosecution had brought that proved in any way, shape or form the charges against us, these charges that we supposed aided and abetted the Muslim Brotherhood, which the Egyptian authorities have now deemed a terrorist organisation. Just to slightly take you one step back, that decision to deem them terrorists wasn't made until December. And very basic point, I left Egypt in November. I'd been covering the country since the coup last summer that removed the Muslim Brotherhood from power, like many international journalists, and I'd been covering all sorts of different stories, including the protests and the politics, but I hadn't reported anything differently to all the other international journalists. And the very fact that I had left the country before the Muslim Brotherhood was even deemed a terrorist organisation makes it ridiculous that I should have been seen as aiding and abetting this group. But just to move you back to my colleagues in prison, you know, there was nothing in the evidence that proved anyway that they had done anything other than be straightforward, balanced, fair reporters. So the reaction really was one of shock and disbelief, and now I suppose it's really building to anger, to be frank.
And Sue, you said you witnessed or heard some of the court sessions, and apparently some of the evidence had absolutely nothing to do with what the three journalists were charged with. It included family vacation photos and footage of news reports from other networks and on completely unrelated subjects. So could you comment on that?
They made a big thing when they went into the hotel suite that we'd kind of been using as a makeshift office, because months before they'd raided our bureau, so we'd had to move to a hotel. But they made a big thing of leaking video of the arrest of my three colleagues, and they put ridiculous music to it. It was actually the soundtrack from Thor, this really dramatic music, with the release. And in this video, you see that they show pictures of the hard drives and the computers that were being used, and a lighting stand and a tripod and a camera. And to them, you know, this is sort of showing the evidence that was found in this, what they deemed the Marriott cell after the hotel we were staying in. And they used this evidence in court, and they basically just showed the hard drive that they'd found in Peter Greste's room. And it was ridiculous, to be frank. There were pictures from a bulletin from Sky News Arabia of a horse galloping around a paddock. I mean, you know, it would be funny if it wasn't so serious that my colleagues are now incarcerated for years on end. There were pictures, as you say, of Peter Greste's family on holiday. There were pictures of a documentary he made when he used to work for the BBC in Somalia, an award-winning documentary. And this is one of the reasons you mentioned earlier that there has been this vigil outside the BBC and many other media organisations in the last 2 days, because Peter is so respected as a brilliant journalist, not just in the region that he usually covers in East Africa, but he has been all over the world for a number of organisations. And everybody is aghast that they should have been accused of these things, let alone convicted. And I will put my hand on my heart and say the same for his other two cellmates, Mohamed, Fahmy and Mohamed, strong, balanced reporters that helped me enormously when I was trying to cover Cairo to understand the complexities of the story in Egypt. And these guys are now convicted with the flimsiest of evidence brought into court.